Good evening. Welcome to Mount Zion Worldwide Ministries Intercessory Team. Amen. My name is Sharon Moore Doggett. Amen. And I'll be talking about today El-Roi, the introduction of El-Roi. Amen. And I'll be reading from Exodus, the 3rd chapter, the 1st through the 6th verse. Amen. It reads, Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back or the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb or Sinai, the mount of God. Amen. So we see here that Moses, amen, was a shepherd for his father-in-law. Amen. He was keeping the sheep. He was tending to them. Amen. So Moses made sure that the sheep were fed. Amen. That they had water. Amen. He kept them safe. Amen. Amen. And he kept them from danger. Amen. And you can't have your own until you learn to, as our pastor say, is to take care of someone else's things. Amen. So we see here that Moses was working. Amen. And it says here that the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the 2nd verse in a flame out of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, yet was not consumed. Amen. So when the angel of the Lord found Moses, he found him working. And that's how usually God finds and he calls men and women of God. He calls you and he finds you working, being busy about your Father's business. Amen. Tending, not being a busybody in other people's business, but he usually calls those that are working. Amen. That are hard at work. Amen. So it says that he appeared to him in a bush. Amen. He appeared to him as a fire out of the midst of a bush. Amen. He appeared to him in a burning bush. Amen. And as Moses looked and he stared at the bush, he noticed that the bush wasn't burned. Amen. And he was probably, me, myself, I would wonder, like, why wasn't this bush being consumed? Amen. Why wasn't the bush burning? Amen. That's enough to get the attention of a person. Amen. And it says, and Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not being burned. So we see here that Moses is taking a closer look and he's inspecting, like, why is this bush not being burned? I see the fire, amen, in the midst of the bush, but the bush is not being consumed. The bush is not burning. Amen. And it says, and when the Lord saw, he turned aside to see. God called to him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. So God used the burning bush to get Moses' attention. Amen. And once he saw that he had captured Moses' attention, amen, he called Moses. Amen. And that's how God usually calls us. Amen. Into the ministry, amen. And even when God wants to introduce himself to us, amen, he will call you out of your situation, out of what you are going through. But God first has to get your attention, because a lot of times our mind is so bogged down, amen, with bills. Our mind is bogged down sometimes with depression, oppression, the things that we're going through, the different things in life, amen. Trying to pay the bills, wondering where the money is coming from. Do your kids have enough food to eat? Do they have enough clothes and shoes? Those are the things most of the time that's on people's mind. Do I have enough money to cover my rent and my bills this month? Amen. These are the things that are on people's mind most of the time. Amen. But if God can only get your attention, and if he can only get you to focus on him and off your situation of what you're going through, amen, he can take you to a higher place. He can introduce you himself to you. Amen. Because a lot of times we make our situations, amen, larger than life, but nothing is greater than God. Amen. No situation that you're going through, your bills, what you're going through with your children, your marital problems that you're going through, none of those things, amen, can compare to who God is. Amen. And God is trying a lot of times to get your attention. He's like, hey, it's me. I'm over here. And we're still focused. Our mind is just so fixed on what we're going through that we can't hear God. Amen. We can't hear him because our mind is so tuned into what we're going through that we drown out the voice of God. Amen. In our lives. And it says, God said, do not come near. Put your shoes off your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy ground. Amen. So as Moses went to come closer to God, amen, as he went to draw nearer, God told him to take off his shoes. Amen. And I'm asking you on tonight, what is God asking you to take off on tonight? What weight is God asking you to lay aside? Amen. That those things can't come into the holy place. Amen. Could it be your depression? Could it be your anger? Could it be your bitterness? Could it be the strife? And God is saying, listen, lay it down, take it off, because this can't come, amen, into a place of worship. Because I'm trying to draw you closer to me. I'm trying to introduce myself of who I am to you and let you know that there's nothing impossible with me. But I gotta first introduce you. I gotta introduce you to who I am. Let me formally introduce myself to you. I am El-Roi. I am the God who sees. Amen. I don't slumber. I don't sleep. Amen. And I am the very present God of your situation. Amen. There's no situation that is too hard for me. Amen. That I can turn the situation around. And even if I don't turn the situation around, I am able to turn the way that you perceive the situation. Amen. That you will be able to handle the situation and that the situation will not overtake you. Amen. But I'll keep you grounded as long as you stand on my word. Amen. And he was telling him, like, listen, the place where you stand is holy ground. You know, our issues and our problems of life, it can't come into the holy place. Amen. The issues and the problems of life, it can't come into the holy place. So God is like, don't you know who I am? Don't you know that I am the great I am? Amen. And no matter what your situation that you're going through, no matter the problems that you're facing, amen, that I'm bigger and I'm better than any problem or situation that you may be facing. And he says in the 6th verse, and he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. So God is giving him his pedigree. Amen. I am the God of your father. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of your forefathers. Amen. I took care of them. Amen. I blessed them. Amen. Abraham, he was living in his father's house. Amen. He was broke, busted, down, and disgusted. Amen. And they were idol worshipers. And God called him from his house. Amen. He was like, listen, come out of your father's house. Get away from your family. Get away from your kindred. Get away from Buki and them and that familiar place where they think that they know you and they know everything about you. Come out of it. Amen. And go to a place, come to a place that I will show you. Amen. And if God is going to take you higher and he's going to take you to another place that you have never seen before, you got to come out of that old place, that old state of mind, that old stinking thinking. Amen. You got to come to a higher place so that God can reveal himself to you. Because a lot of times we worshiping God, but we really don't know who he is. And God was like, listen, I'm going to show you who I am. I took care of your forefathers. I made ways out of no ways. I am the God that parted the Red Sea. Amen. I am the God that rained down manna from heaven. Don't you know who I am? But if you don't know, this is who I am. Let me formally introduce myself. I am El-Roi. Amen. The God that sees. Amen. And not only do I see, but I take action. Amen. So he was like, let me tell you who I am. Because a lot of people got it mixed up. They got it messed up. Amen. They exalt their problems and they act like their problems and their situation is larger than life. It's not bigger than me. I can handle it. So I pray that this segment has blessed you and that no matter what you are facing or no matter what you are going through, amen, knowing that you have been introduced to El-Roi, the God that sees, amen, and that he takes action on your situation, amen. So don't ever feel that your situation is larger than God, because it's not. Amen. God can handle your situation. He can handle the things that you go through. And I heard a minister say that our problem is on a white paper is like a dot, and a dot to God. So that means that it's nothing. It's minute. It's such a small thing. Amen. But we're the one that make the situation grand. So I pray that you are blessed, amen, by this segment. And my name is Minister Sharon Doggett, and I have one thing to say: Jesus is Lord.